All right, so I have to tell you a story. Several years ago, this has probably been like 3 or 4 years now since this happened. I had the opportunity to go four wheeling with a friend of mine, and he brought along another friend of his who I had not met. And we got everything prepped and ready to go early in the morning, and then headed out to the mountain trail. Got the four wheelers unloaded, had a little chit chat about some safety things, just some basic stuff, and we headed on up the trail. Now, I had ridden four wheelers before, but I wasn't by any means an experienced four wheel rider. I knew enough to be able to go and stop, and that was about it. I wasn't skilled enough to know like what to do in certain situations. So, along the trail, as we're heading up this mountain, we reached a fence, and there was a cattle grate, I believe it was. So it was like this little ramp kind of that went over the fence, and it allowed people to get over. It allowed, motorcycles and four wheelers to get over, but it prevented the cattle or livestock in the area from crossing that part of the fence. And I got over that one fine. It was a little bit awkward, and I was a little nervous maybe going over, but got over it fine, no problems, and we continued on up the trail. So a little further up the trail, we came to another one of these little grates. And I remember my friend went over first and got over to the other side, and then he stopped and waited for me and the other guy with us to head on up the trail. And when it was my turn, I headed up over the ramp, and I remember when I hit the bottom, my front wheels, just the way I was angled, my front wheels had me kind of at a pretty steep angle. And my instinct was to hit the brake. Well, that was not the right instinct. I should have let it roll because of the steep angle that I was at. And instead of rolling safely over the other side, the back wheels of the four-wheeler started to lift up slowly. And next thing I know, I am flying over the handlebars. By some miracle, I didn't get crushed underneath the four-wheeler. It actually rolled kind of right over me in a way that it really didn't even touch me. But I did hit the ground with some pretty strong force, and it was enough that I actually separated this shoulder. And even to this day, I've got like a bump right here on the shoulder where my bone's sticking up more than it's supposed to. But that was the end of that four-wheeler adventure, that trip. And I'm grateful for my friend and his buddy who were able to get me safely down the mountain and back home where I could begin the process of healing, which, little side note, took a couple of months to kind of get back to normal. Anyway, my point of telling you this story is I've been thinking about this topic over the past week because I've had some things in my personal life, for me and for my family, that things haven't gone exactly like we wanted out of life. And the reality is this happens to us more often than I think plans go the way you want. Oftentimes we will make plans, and there's usually something that gets in the way of making things run smoothly and going exactly the way that we want. So the question then becomes, how do we deal with situations like this? How do we deal with life and with our business, whatever it is, when things aren't going exactly the way that we had hoped and wanted? One of the things that has been prominent in my mind this past week is I turn to my faith. I turn to my faith in God and the belief that I have that He has a greater plan for me. That's one of the things that I think has really made a difference in my life and really helped me to be able to kind of look past this situation this week and every other situation that I've had in the past where things just didn't go the way that I wanted, that I can know that everything will work out and everything will be okay. That's kind of one of the lessons that I've learned throughout my life, is that just because things don't always go as planned, there are often things that we can't see right now, and yet with a little bit of time behind us, we're able to look and go, oh wow, that's the reason that I had to go through that or had to have that experience, because I gained this or I learned that. And these are the lessons of life, the things that give us experience and teach us and help us to become the person that we're meant to be. So as you are looking at the things going on in your life and having possible experiences where things aren't going quite the way that you wanted them to or expected them to, remember that oftentimes, and again, I would say more often than not, there is something else that you're supposed to gain or learn from that experience. And so look for those little small miracles and those little small opportunities for growth, to be able to gain that knowledge or that extra wisdom that you needed to help you in another time in your life. Because that's really what I think life is all about. It's taking those daily actions to do things, to set goals, and to go after our dreams, but understanding and knowing that sometimes we're going to have learning processes along the way, and those are going to help us to get where we need to be. And actually, the final destination isn't always where you envisioned it in the first place. It's often someplace very different than where you actually envisioned. And I'm actually looking at a situation like that now with the main business that I run, where I've had some epiphanies recently, or some really strong thoughts that lead me to believe that maybe this business isn't my main business for the future, that it's just something that's kind of a stepping stone to get me from where I am to that next step in my journey. That's kind of what I've been thinking today and wanted to share that. We all run across all kinds of challenges in our lives where maybe we think that our plans are ruined and things aren't working out like we want. But keep in mind that there is somebody upstairs who has a direction for our lives. I think he's guiding us and helping us go down the path that we need to go down in order to learn the things that we need to learn so that we'll be more prepared when we get to, another spot down the road on the journey. In the case of the four-wheeler, one of the lessons that I learned was that I needed to have patience because healing wasn't going to happen overnight. This was a serious enough injury that it was going to take some time. The other big lesson that I learned is that I needed to rely on other people to help me because there were things that I was simply not able to do because of that injury. So in everything in life, there's always lessons to be learned if we're willing to look. I hope that gives you something positive to think about as you're going through the various trials in your life or the things that are not really going the way that you want them to go, that there often is value in the things that we're doing, even when stuff doesn't work out like we want. So I hope that helps, and wish you all the best. Bye.